Let's take a deep breath. Inhale, exhale. All right. So, have you ever heard of Vincent van Gogh? Right? This famous painter. Now, he actually didn't pick up painting right from the get-go. You might be wondering, well, geniuses start right as soon as they're in their, I don't know, like 30 year existing on this planet, or 5 years existing on this planet. As a young kid, as a youthful progeny filled with potential or whatever. However, Vincent van Gogh didn't start picking up painting till about 27. 27. Dude, that's a long time because most of us these days are told that if you were to start something such as artistry or sports, you need to start early on in life because then your body and mind is able to adjust accordingly. And after 20 or 25, it'd be too late because your brain is already made up with patterns and it's solidified in its nature. So that's interesting that he started at the age of 27. But before the age of 27, he tried to be a businessman, a teacher, a preacher, and he failed at all of these things. He was struggling for jobs. I think if I read it correctly, somewhere in Netherlands he was teaching English. I guess so. He was a teacher for a little bit, but that wasn't going that well for him. Until his brother actually told him that he needs to start painting. So he started late and he was scared and he was uncertain about the entire dynamic. And it wasn't until his final decade of his painting career that he sold nearly 2,000 pieces, right? And I would say final decade, but to be honest, it didn't work out till I think in his last 2 years of his life. And after his demise, he became famous for his paintings. So just take a moment to sit with that. You work your ass off every single day, right after starting late into the game, and you don't see any growth, and after your demise, everybody knows your name. Almost everybody knows your name. Isn't that wild? Because he sold almost nothing when he was alive. So he didn't have any form of validation, no form of recognition, no audience, no clout, no sponsorships, no brand deals, no monetization of his paintings that he could live like a rich artist that we think he was because of his fame. But that wasn't the case. And technically, by every metric that we observe or we hold, content creation or value or status of fame in this society, Vincent van Gogh failed in almost every metric on how we evaluate in today's world because he was an absolute failure before his demise. But he started nonetheless. He started scared, he started late, he started broke, he started without a mentor or an inspiration. Maybe his art himself itself was an inspiration to him, but it wasn't without his brother, you see. He started nonetheless, and that's the only reason why we know his name to this day. Like, even if you didn't see any of his paintings, or if you don't know what his paintings look like, you definitely have heard about his name. And it's been so many years, like what, 2 centuries since his passing, and we still know his name. In that same way, I'd like you to think about your own life, right? You keep telling everybody that you know that you will do the thing when you're ready, when you feel the time is right. Or maybe you need more time, more clarity, more research. Maybe you need the right sign. Maybe you want the universe or God to show you the way. And actually, they do show you the way, but in a very, very subtle manner, and you have to pick it up. But it's going to be so subtle that you can actually choose to ignore it because it requires you to put in the effort. Why? Because attention requires effort, pattern recognition requires effort, and you putting in the time and investment into doing the thing requires effort. It's not going to be magical, right? But your mind is looking for time, clarity, excuses, and the right signs. And you have to ask yourself, how long have you been saying that? You've been saying that for a week, maybe, a month, maybe, a year, or maybe your entire life up until this video. And maybe waiting or romanticizing or fantasizing the euphoria has become your new identity. That you convince yourself that you know you're capable of doing something great, that you've convinced others that you will be doing something great, but you haven't actually put in the effort or taken the initiative. And I think underneath it all is fear. In my last video, I talked about shadow work and how your shadow dictates yourself. And this, in a way, is a shadow. And I won't go too deep about the shadow work. You can check out my video previously. But the root cause, I think, is fear. And here's what nobody tells you: readiness is not a feeling. It is not a moment that arrives. It's not like you are turning Super Saiyan right now and activated or flip the switch. Maybe there are circumstances in your life that force you to go through a particular change that you did not expect that you'd go through, right? But even that circumstance causes a trigger in you that you have to sort of continue or elongate the process of transformation thereby. You see? So, in a way, this readiness is not going to be a feeling, it is not going to be a moment that arrives. It is something that you decide to act for, and it's actually a form of rebellion. Yes, I use the word rebellion. And you might be wondering, how is readiness a form of rebellion? What are you rebelling against, Jay? Where I have to emphasize, you're not rebelling against your parents or your society or a system. It's easy to blame the society, it's easy to blame the parents or the system, and that's because we don't need to take up responsibility. I don't say that to say that external circumstances don't affect us. They very much do. But it's up to how we choose to respond to those external circumstances that helps our self esteem, self efficacy, confidence, and purpose or drive levels in our life. So, again, it's not these external factors of parent, society, or system or whatever. It's something closer, and that is you rebelling against yourself, right? Because there is a part of you that wants to be safe. There's a part of you that wants to feel comfortable. There's a part of me that doesn't want to shoot this video that I have procrastinated for 2 weeks now, right? I could have easily waited for another 2 weeks and told myself, showing my vision board to everybody and saying that, oh, my life's purpose is to talk about spirituality, self-help, and philosophy, and dramatize it and not actually shoot a YouTube video, because that's hypocritical. And you also may just be doing the same thing when it comes to your dreams or the tasks or the responsibility that you are supposed to undertake. Now let's dive a little deeper into why it feels good. Well, I think waiting just feels comfortable, right? When you wait, you're not risking anything. There is no movement. There is stagnation. And when you don't fail, because you don't move, you don't fail. And when you don't fail, you don't get judged. And when you don't get judged, you're not disappointing anybody, right? Because guess what? All of it is in your head, and nobody else knows your fear or your shadows. It's all locked in here. But the issue with this is that you don't grow, you don't evolve, you just hide, and quietly you disappear It's a very subtle thing. Think about it. There are so many people watching so many podcasts, videos, self improvement, spirituality. They go to the church, they talk about coming up with New Year's resolutions, they talk about evolving themselves. But guess what? Out of so many billions of people who consume content, who do fake promises, how many of them you see embody these qualities of whatever they preach about or yap about? It's rare to find that. And so many people disappear quietly because they have lied to themselves. And you potentially are doing that to yourself too. That is the trap of the spiritual ego or the self improvement bubble. You know, you keep gathering information, and that is a trap. And that is a huge problem to our specific generation. See, we don't procrastinate as we are lazy. It's more that we procrastinate productively. We prioritize certain things. We prioritize a TV show. We prioritize a movie. We prioritize a Tinder date. We prioritize a porn video. We're doing all these things in terms of our priority or our needs that we think it's our needs, but it's actually, in a way, I mean, to be fair, it is our need, but it is in the lower dimensions. And what I mean by that is, it is the body trying to seek for pleasure, and it's in this hedonistic wheel that you procrastinate yourself productively by being productive in the hedonism, and you actually don't be productive in the higher dimensions of what you're capable of, such as writing, such as applying for jobs, such as making more money, building businesses, creating content, right? Investing time and energy in your loved ones. So take a note of that. Just be mindful if in case you're falling onto this trap. And also you could be idle too. You could say that you don't have the sign, you are not feeling ready, and you're gonna wait. And that waiting also becomes a productive waiting style, you know? Because you tell yourself that you're not waiting directly, you tell yourself that you're preparing for the right movement, a moment. Whether if it is you finding out the right book, finding out the right tutorial video, finding out the right course or a guru or a mentor or a podcast, you're researching, you're optimizing, you're planning, you're strategizing. But are you actually taking the action? That's the issue. You can definitely watch all the World Cup matches. You could look at how amazingly the player, I was going to say the Messi, I was going to say the Argentinian player Messi. You can see how amazingly Messi plays, and you could appreciate watching his highlights. But you have your soccer boots in your closet outside right there, and you haven't even touched it, and you're critiquing players in the World Cup, whereas you were supposed to go out to the pitch or to the football field or soccer field, and you were supposed to perform and train as a player, right? You can get lost in the consumption and theory and strategizing and looking at footballing tutorials, but you never are on the pitch. And we can make that same mistake in almost every other setting in our lives. All of this might feel progress to you, the endless consumption and strategizing, but most of it is a strategic and sophisticated waiting that is robbing your soul. And you don't need any more information because you have been informed for many years already. You just need to move, you just need to act, you just need to shoot it. Now, let me be clear before you misunderstand or jump to conclusions. There is a difference. There is a difference between waiting, timing, and prioritizing. Three different things. Now, timing is real. Some things need the right season. Like you can't plant something in the winter time and expect it to grow quickly. It's not ideal. The conditions are not ideal. Prioritizing is also real too. You can't do everything at once. You have limited attention span and focus. So you have to prioritize certain tasks in a day or certain tasks in a week. So prioritizing is also real. But the difference is that timing and prioritizing are active. So that is, you are still moving, but you're more intentional with it. You see, you're not passive with it, you're more intentional with it, you're more intent with it. That is the significance here. So you're still implementing the process of prioritizing and timing things, but you're intense and you're up to date with it, right? There is a checkbox to it, and you're looking at that checkbox every day. Doesn't matter if that makes you a type A personality or OCD, but it definitely gets you moving. And as you're moving, you are doing other things. And even resting also can be moving in that context because that is part of your timing and prioritizing. This compared to simply sitting idly and just killing the time without awareness. Passive, you're standing still and you're calling it patience, at least your form of waiting. That could be the case. And timing says, I'll start, but I'll start in 3 months. And here's what I'll do until then. Let me focus on certain things. Whereas waiting says, I'll start when I feel ready. I'll start when I feel like it. I don't have a plan. I don't have any information or any movement or executions to do. I'm just going to wait. Now, that's the difference between timing and waiting. Strategy, whereas the other is fear with an interesting way to brand itself. So be honest with yourself with what you're choosing to do. Don't confuse one for the other. And every time you decide to begin something and you choose not to do that, there is actually a part of you that is watching. Think about this way. If you have got come too deep in this video till this moment, I'm sure you were observant enough with your family or your friends where you picked up patterns and you've observed them. In that same way, you actually start watching and observing yourself, and you slowly start to abandon yourself because you are not living up to your promises or your values. And you start to trust yourself a little less because of the waiting game. And again, you start to abandon yourself, not in a one time dramatic, it is over moment, but it is more of the repetitions, slow deterioration of your self confidence and trust within yourself. Because then eventually, that motivation and inspiration that you had, because you didn't take actions at the right time, you eventually see yourself as the hero who had the potential but now is sleeping on his couch because he can't bear the burden of the world anymore. And that is not a good feeling to be in. So catch yourself before you get into that rut. Now, besides your internal aspect of waiting and abandoning yourself, let's look at it from the social perspective, especially with our dear friend social media. Because from the outside, you may look fine. You may look responsible. You may look organized. You may look patient. You may even look wise, well put together, having a 9 to 5 job, making the money that you're supposed to make. Right? Externally, you're checking all the boxes, but internally, there's always this discomfort. But who in social media can ever tell that? They can't because they're not in your head. And not only social media, but even your family for that matter, or friends for that matter. We choose to share certain things, and especially if our family members and our friends are not psychic or are not spiritual or deeply religious, where they're in tune with themselves. Not many people are able to pick our brains. Not many people are able to sense our energies. And if that's the case, nobody will know your actual truth. So, besides you knowing your own shadows or pitfalls or ruts, nobody outside knows because that's not something your ego has projected to them. It's a safety mechanism. So the idea that you never built, or the message that you never sent, or the version of you that you never got to embody that never existed, these few things, people on the outside never knew that you had something that you were thinking about. It was only you all along that knew that you were thinking about these things. So from the outside, waiting might look like maturity, as in you might think that they are perceiving you as being mature, but you are actually lying to yourself, and your soul is rotting and it is keeping the score, and it's been starving for a long time. The social media aspect of it makes it worse because when you look at LinkedIn, when you look at Instagram, when you look at people posting their success in the corporate world or in their content creation world, it looks like they're getting somewhere and you feel like you're running behind. You feel like you are losing your game. You feel like you're too late. You feel like you're too late and the others have started earlier on in their lives. And you're watching everyone else appear to win. You open your phone, it looks like everyone at your age made it. There is a 22-year-old co-founder, there is Yamin Lamal, who's scoring goals in the World Cup. There is this overnight creator who laughed at some memes or wore Ray-Ban Meta glasses and made this content where he's now having thousands of views, right? There was one dude who figured life out at the age of 19, and you think you are already behind, so why start now? Let's give up. Let's not bother putting in the effort and emotion and intensity because we are too late now. But that's the thing, guys. The feed doesn't show you the truth. You all know about it. Everybody talks about how toxic social media is, but not many people know how to not be consumed by it. Not many people know how to separate it and not let their mind be tainted by its toxicity. It's essentially like a drug addict smoking crack and saying he's a drug addict and crack is not good and he needs to quit. But he doesn't quit. He keeps smoking crack all the time. And that's how procrastination and social media has become in our lives. The mediocrity has become the badge of honor. The criticism has become the badge of honor. The laziness has become a beautiful excuse into blaming external things and not taking responsibility. And it's easy for me to say that. And I myself get caught in these bubbles time to time. But if we choose not to get out of this rut, we are lying to ourselves. We are not living up to our potential. And when we look back, when we are old, maybe when we're on our deathbed, then we would be thinking, now it's too late. I wish I could have done something earlier in my 20s, in my 30s, in my 40s. So you might be seeing someone on social media highlight their success after 3 years of grind that you have never witnessed. You are seeing this YouTube video from me after 5 years of intense effort in my spiritual practices, in my philosophical, psychological, religious pursuits, right? You might see a short clip on Instagram about someone and you're like, whoa, that looks so cool. I wonder how they achieved that success. You are not looking at behind the scenes. You don't know how deep it may get. And the illusion is that for the mind, it thinks that all of this happens really quick. It doesn't. It builds over time. And depending upon your karmic patterns too, success is subjective and everyone is in their own timeline. The ego likes to catch one's timeline, compare it subconsciously, and feel bad about it. Whereas the wise people seek the best elements, seek inspiration from the exact same scenario, and embody those elements into their lives to make their life better, and also trust in their own timing, in their own strengths, in their own potential. And that's how you're actually supposed to do it. So don't get into the negative rut, or don't get too cynical, or don't just keep waiting. Don't keep looking at these edited reels or contents with their timelines and how quick they have risen to fame, risen. See, feeling behind on a race that never existed is pretty crazy. And I sometimes fall into that trap too. There are so many young speakers out there who have had success early on in their lives. There's so many people out there in the United States, especially in the school that I work in, where they come from families that are well off, that have good childhood, that have great homes. And I struggled for most of my life. Not that I lived lavishly, nor did I live in a very, very poor environment. But we all have our different upbringings, different backgrounds, different karmas that shapes us to who we are and what we are meant to go through in this life. And this is where I'll bring the line from Bhagavad Gita that in which Krishna tells Arjuna, it's better to fail in your own dharma than to succeed in someone else's dharma, right? It's better to fail at what's actually yours than to succeed at what was never meant for you in the first place. Because dharma doesn't ask for permission, it calls, it's an inner calling, and it's something that only you know because it's subjective to you. And when you ignore it, it actually doesn't hide, it will haunt you. Now, how can you figure out your dharma or your purpose and things as such? You can definitely DM me and I can help you out with that. But again, if you recognize what you are capable of, if you recognize what your potential is, and you don't act on it, it actually transmutes into anxiety, restlessness, and you're just going to feel shallow because you know what the deep end looks like. You see, Marcus Aurelius, a famous Stoic philosopher, said something similar in a different angle, right? He ran an empire that was going through plagues, wars, betrayals, and all such things. But I don't think, if you, especially if you read his book, The Meditations, I don't think he ever complained and said, why is this happening to me? Why is the universe against me? No, no, he was quiet about it. In fact, in his meditations, he says, bring it. Memento mori, remember that I'll die. Bring it. I will not fall apart. Of course, I'm paraphrasing these things, but he never complains about it. He says, so what? Let me continue doing my work as a king. Let me continue to live righteously. Let me continue to live fearlessly. This was his mentality, right? And one of his famous lines, you could leave, which is you could die right now. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. What a powerful quote that is, right? Because when you think about death, when you think about the game is over, the time is up, that's when you actually start prioritizing and not waiting for things in life. Because now you're like, wait, I know my potential, or I need to figure out my potential, and I need to act on it. There is no time to waste because this is the end. Exactly. That's the reframe that we need to have in our lives. We don't have 10,000 years. You don't even have the guarantee of living tomorrow. You don't know what your karmic patterns are. You don't know what God has plans for you, right? We'll never know God's plans. But what we do know is our plans right now in this moment. So the waiting version of you is spending all the valuable currency that you actually don't have to spend. Just sit on them for a little bit. So there is no perfect moment that is coming. There is no version of you that suddenly wakes up and suddenly becomes fearless. That person doesn't exist. That is basically a fairy tale movie fantasy, right? It is it is it is a fantasy that distracts you from taking the action, and the only way that you're able to get to the level that you want to get to is by action, is by working through the resistance that you face every single day. And it feels like effort, but that is the price that you have to pay for greatness. Everybody can say the exact same things that I'm saying, but not many people are doing what they're saying. And don't be like them. Even if you are shaking your hands, you are trembling, you feel half prepared, you don't feel ready, your voice is creaking, whatever discomfort that you might be facing for starting the thing that you're supposed to, just start. Please start. Because readiness isn't what you wait for, it's what you become when you move despite the fear being present in your heart. That is the difference between a warrior and a coward. So here's the truth: you don't need more information, you don't need more time, you just need to act. You need the truth. And the truth is that every day you wait, your life dies a little by little. Not visibly, not quickly, but very quietly, it is disintegrating. And this is the worst kind of death that you could expect for yourself. Because nobody will notice that, maybe including you if you have not clicked on this video or if you have not been contemplating about this for quite some time. So stop waiting for permission that is never going to come. Start preparing for the moment that doesn't exist. Start before you are feeling ready, because hesitation is just self-abandonment in slow motion. And lastly, to end this, I want you to visualize, picture. I want you to visualize that the person that you are trying to become is standing on the other side of the thing that you are afraid to begin. And he's looking right at you, asking you if you have what it takes to get to where he's at. All right. I'll see you all in the next